Why is everything made in China? I'm sure many of us have seen this phrase when we read the label on our clothes or check the details on our phones, watches, or even toothbrushes. And that got me thinking, why is everything made in China? Is it because they have the cheapest labor? Do they have the best technology? Or are we simply too reliant on them? Let's take a closer look at why so much of our stuff is actually made in China. Now, before we start, I want to clear something up. It's not true that everything is made in China. There are plenty of items out there that are produced domestically. And believe it or not, there are some things that cannot be made in China, even if they tried. I'm talking about stuff like sand, caviar, the Mona Lisa, or any products that require a specific geographical location to be produced. But these are exceptions to the rule. To put China's manufacturing dominance into perspective, let's look at some staggering statistics. China produces roughly 28% of all manufactured goods globally. That's more than the next 3 countries combined. They manufacture 90% of the world's smartphones, 60% of all clothing, and an astounding 50% of the world's steel. In electronics alone, China assembles over 70% of all consumer devices we use daily. But here's what's really mind-blowing. If China's manufacturing sector were its own country, it would be the 4th largest economy in the world. That's how massive their production capacity is. And now that we cleared that up, let's talk about why so much of the stuff we use every day is made in China. But to understand why this is the case, we need to go back in time a little bit and see how China became the manufacturing hub of the world. So fast forward to the 1970s. China was an isolated country under the control of Mao Zedong, also known as Chairman Mao. This guy basically ran China like it was his own personal kingdom. But as he grew older, he started to realize that his empire might collapse once he kicked the bucket. So as a way to secure his legacy, he opened China's borders and introduced a new economic system called the Special Economic Zones, or SEZ for short. But this wasn't just a simple policy change. It was a complete economic revolution that would reshape the global supply chain forever. The concept was radical for communist China at the time. Deng Xiaoping, who came to power after Mao, famously said, "It doesn't matter whether a cat is black or white. If it catches mice, it is a good cat." This philosophy became the foundation for China's pragmatic approach to capitalism within a communist framework. Basically, SEZ are areas within China where the government lifts many economic restrictions and allows private businesses to thrive. The government also heavily incentivized foreign companies to move their production to these zones by offering tax breaks and cheap land. But they didn't stop there. They offered something even more valuable: a stable political environment and a government that actively wanted foreign businesses to succeed. And it worked. By the 1980s, many companies were setting up shop in China, mostly in the coastal cities of Shenzhen, Shuhai, Shantou, and Xiamen. To give you an idea of how dramatic this transformation was, Shenzhen went from a small fishing village of 30,000 people in 1980 to a megacity of over 12 million people today. That's unprecedented urban and economic growth in human history. As the years went on, other special economic zones would pop up all over the place, and soon China was raking in billions from foreign investment. The money wasn't just trickling in, it was flooding in. Foreign direct investment went from practically zero in the 1970s to over $100 billion annually by the 2000s. In fact, by the year 2000, China had become the world's 2nd largest economy behind only the United States. But they weren't done yet. They continued this explosive growth for another 2 decades. Now you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with me? Well, these special economic zones are the reason why your phone is made in China. You see, when foreign companies moved their production to China, they did so because China offered extremely cheap labor. This meant that they could produce the same goods for far less money compared to what it costs to manufacture the same products in their home country. This resulted in two things. Companies saved money and consumers got cheaper products. It was a win-win situation. For example, let's say a factory worker in the US makes around $30 per hour, plus benefits and overtime pay. Whereas in China, a factory worker only makes around $4 per hour. But here's what most people don't realize. It wasn't just about the wages. Chinese workers were often more productive per dollar spent. They worked longer hours, had fewer workplace regulations to comply with, and the factories could operate with much more flexibility than their Western counterparts. Of course, this caused many problems for the workers in the developed countries who saw their jobs get shipped overseas. Entire industrial cities in the American Rust Belt became ghost towns. Manufacturing employment in the US dropped from 19 million jobs in 1980 to just 12 million by 2010. But that's a topic for another video. But in terms of production costs, China's cheap labor was a game changer. However, there's more to China's success than just low wages. See, while their labor was cheap, they weren't the absolute cheapest. That title goes to countries like Bangladesh, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So why didn't all the companies just move to one of those countries? Well, it's because China had a significant advantage that these other countries didn't have: scale. You see, China had a large population, meaning there were plenty of workers to go around. If a company decided to move its production to Cambodia, they would be limited to the number of workers that Cambodia could offer. But China had millions of people waiting to be employed. Not only that, but China already had a strong base of factories and skilled workers. Many of these factories were state-owned, which meant that the government could easily step in and help struggling businesses. And speaking of the government, the Chinese Communist Party ensured that all the pieces of the production puzzle fit together smoothly, whether it was through tax breaks, subsidies, or raw materials. This brings me to my next point: infrastructure. China has invested heavily in its infrastructure, especially in the coastal regions where most of the factories are located. We're talking about ports that can handle the world's largest container ships, highways that connect every major industrial center, and high-speed rail networks that can transport goods and workers faster than anywhere else in the world. Consider this: China has built more high-speed rail in the past 20 years than the rest of the world combined. They have over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail lines. That's more than twice the distance around the Earth at the equator. This infrastructure allows them to move raw materials to factories and finished products to ports with incredible efficiency. But one of the most important aspects of China's manufacturing boom is something called vertical specialization. What's vertical specialization, you ask? Well, let me explain. When a company moves its production to China, it doesn't just move its entire supply chain. Instead, they focus on moving parts of their supply chain that make sense to move. For example, let's say you're a watch manufacturer based in Switzerland. Your company is famous for producing high-quality timepieces that are sold all over the world. But recently, your company has been struggling to compete against cheaper alternatives. So you decide to move your production to China in order to cut costs. Now your watch still has a Swiss brand name on it, but it's assembled in China. In this scenario, you've vertically specialized your business. You still do the research and development in Switzerland, but the actual assembly of the product is done in China. And this is exactly what China has been doing for decades. China has been vertically specializing its economy to the point where they re-good at literally every single part of the supply chain. This has created what economists call industrial clusters, entire regions that specialize in specific types of manufacturing. For instance, the Pearl River Delta specializes in electronics and high-tech manufacturing. The Yangtze River Delta focuses on automotive and machinery production. These clusters create a network effect where suppliers, manufacturers, and logistics companies all locate near each other. making the entire system more efficient. This means that if a company decides to work with China, they don't have to worry about anything because China will take care of the rest. Need screws for your product? There's a factory down the street. Need packaging materials? There's another one next door. Need to ship it to a port? The logistics network is already in place. Here's something that might surprise you. China isn't just competing on low costs anymore. They've been rapidly moving up the value chain. 20 years ago, China was known for making cheap, low-quality knockoffs. Today, they're at the forefront of technology in areas like artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and electric vehicles. Chinese companies like BYD are now the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer. Huawei was, until recently, competing head-to-head with Apple in smartphone technology. DJI dominates the global drone market with an estimated 70% market share. This isn't your grandfather's made in China anymore. The Chinese government has been investing heavily in research and development, education, and high-tech industries. They graduate more engineers and scientists than any other country in the world. In 2022, China filed more international patents than the United States for the first time in history. But don't worry, I am not gonna drop some political hot potato on you and tell you that China is taking advantage of the world or anything like that. China has benefited tremendously from the global market, and so has the rest of the world. I mean, would you rather pay $200 for a TV or $20 for the same exact TV? Exactly. We all love cheap stuff. This relationship has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty in China while simultaneously giving consumers worldwide access to affordable goods. The average American household saves an estimated $850 per year because of Chinese manufacturing. That's money that can be spent on other things, invested or saved. However, this rapid industrialization hasn't come without costs. China's manufacturing boom has contributed significantly to environmental pollution and carbon emissions. The country is now the world's largest polluter, responsible for about 30% of global CO2 emissions. Factory workers have faced challenging working conditions, long hours, and relatively low wages compared to developed nations. But here's what's interesting. China is now investing more in renewable energy than any other country. They're the world's largest manufacturer of solar panels and wind turbines. Sometimes the problems created by rapid industrialization also drive innovation in solving those same problems. That being said, it is important to note that China's dominance in the manufacturing industry won't last forever. As their labor force becomes more expensive and their currency becomes stronger, it will become more expensive to manufacture in China. This is already happening in many industries. Countries like Vietnam, Cambodia, and India are already starting to become popular destinations for manufacturers looking to escape China. Vietnam has become a major hub for textile manufacturing and electronics assembly. India is positioning itself as the next major manufacturing destination with its Make in India initiative. But China isn't sitting still. They're transitioning from being the world's factory to being the world's technology leader. The Made in China 2025 plan focuses on moving the country up the value chain into high-tech manufacturing, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. But in the meantime, China is still the undisputed king of manufacturing. And honestly, they earned their spot. They offered cheap labor, great infrastructure, and a smooth business environment. But I think the biggest reason why so much of our stuff is made in China is because of convenience. I mean, let's face it, why would we buy expensive American-made products when we can buy cheaper Chinese-made products? This is especially true when the Chinese-made products are just as good as the American-made products. As consumers, it's important that we understand the consequences of our decisions. By choosing to buy cheaper products, we're essentially saying that we don't value the workers who make our products. And while it's okay to want to save money, It shouldn't come at the expense of other people's well-being. That's why it's always a good idea to try and buy products that are made ethically and sustainably. But let's be honest, how many of us actually do that? Probably not many. But hey, we can always try to do better. Now I'm not going to sit here and tell you to stop buying cheap Chinese products altogether. I mean, I love cheap stuff as much as the next guy. But it is important that we understand the consequences of our decisions as consumers. So the next time you go to the store, take a closer look at the products you're buying. Ask yourself, is it really worth saving a few bucks if it means that someone else has to suffer? Now, I'm not saying that you have to buy expensive products all the time, but it is important to find a balance between saving money and being ethical. The story of China's manufacturing dominance is ultimately a story about globalization, economic development, and human ingenuity. It shows us how quickly the world can change and how interconnected our global economy has become. Whether you see it as a success story or a cautionary tale probably depends on your perspective. What is clear is that understanding where our products come from and how they're remade is more important than ever. As consumers, we have the power to influence global supply chains through our purchasing decisions. The question is, how will we choose to use that power? I hope you found this documentary insightful. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.